Okay, everybody. I guess we'll get this going. I think you can hear me, right? Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we got a panel here today, and with us here is Rachel, Pierre, and Anya. If you've been in the main conference room this morning, you might have seen their presentations, which were excellent. All of them very well done. And we were asked by Clement to do a panel, an English-speaking panel about Bitcoin and our day-to-day lives, and I guess how it's changed us, how we have changed our lives, our thinking, how we interact with it, how we use it, why we were brought to it, all that kind of stuff. I'm more than open to run the mic over to any of you guys. If you have any questions, we can just throw this up to be like a Bitcoin therapy session if you want, because they're always the most fun conversations. But I will hand you the mic because they are recording this for content for after the conference. So first of all, I guess we'll work down the line here, and Rachel will introduce herself and tell you a little bit about how Bitcoin has changed her life.
I'm Rachel, and Bitcoin has changed my life beyond recognition. I have a life BB and a life AB, 100%, 100%. And when I look back and I reflect on it, I'm the same person with the same values, but how I look at society and how the world works has changed completely. And I knew that I wanted, once I understood Bitcoin, and it took me quite a long time to understand Bitcoin. It takes a lot of studying, and you need to find that door that really sends you over the edge. I knew that I wanted to work for Bitcoin, and I do. So it's 100% my life. I'm all in. I keep as little, a bit like Ben on the stage. So I keep as little as I can in fiat and just swap it over when I need. I do have one flat in the UK because my parents live there, and I like to go and visit them when I can. So I work full time in Bitcoin. I spend as much Bitcoin as I can. I do like to promote it, and I'm quite happy to lose a bit of my Bitcoin because I think that's the only way we're going to really, you need to use you don't just need to use the merchants, you need to use the wallet so that it gets used and all the bugs taken out of it. So the more that we do use it in our everyday life, even if you're losing a little bit of money, in my opinion, it's still worth it. So yeah, completely changed my life. In a way that I would never have imagined. I mean, this is very private. Maybe I should put it on here, but I've been married for 30 years this year, and I no longer am. And I was definitely not expecting that to come along. Not what I had on my bingo card, but it changes you. And I think people come to Bitcoin at different times, and you can't force anybody. You have to choose which path do I want to take, and this is a path that I'm happy taking, and you can't be a kind of person that you're not. So yeah, absolutely beyond recognition.
And yeah, it's ladies first.
Ladies first. Okay, thank you very much. Hi everybody, I'm Anya. I'm the founder of Bitvocation. I want to say I understood the idea of Bitcoin very quickly, but it took me a long time to trust it. That's why I kept studying for a long time and still study it every day. But the reason why I got the idea very quickly is because I am on my third fiat currency in my life. So it is really true that fiat currencies have a very short lifespan, like 27 years on average. I was born in East Germany. I had East German money, then the West German money came, and then the euro came. So my third fiat currency. And I love freedom, self-direction, everything. All of these values are the Bitcoin values. So, of course, naturally, I was drawn to Bitcoin. And I just explained how I ended up working in this space.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pierre, and I'm trying to figure out what got me into Bitcoin. I mean, originally, I was very interested by blockchain. I remember this realization of this is something really cool, and that was the developer mindset in me that just thought like we can do stuff with that. And I even did some coding on Solidity So that's the Ethereum programming language. I did some tutorials, and actually, in doing that, is the moment when I realized actually what's the point. Because to build something that is worth it, well, you anyway need to bring in some outside data, because I mean the blockchain doesn't even have the time, right? So you need to use other libraries to bring the actual functionality in, and that's when at the same time I was studying Bitcoin specifically, and I just realized that what's the point of building on it directly? We can build things around it. And this all got me very, I guess like everyone, just obsessing about Bitcoin. And I quit my job to work in Bitcoin, and whatever that meant, I had no idea. I think I still don't know what it is, because I'm involved in different projects.
Are you earning any money?
Less than I used to. Definitely less than I used to. I mean, consulting is usually a nice job, and startup founder, I think money comes later.
and can I put the question to you, because I think you've got one of the most fascinating lives.
I used to work with the other money, with fiat currencies. I used to work in foreign exchange markets. I joined foreign exchange markets in London at the age of 19, so back in 1995. And I was at my first job, I was on the spot dollar mark desk, Deutschmarks, against the US dollar. The biggest market in terms of volatility traded in any day by a country mile. The second biggest was dollars against yen. And I was just a 19-year-old running around getting people sandwiches, parking cars. But to me, it was the most exciting thing to be a part of. You saw this room of 16 guys sitting in a circle, screaming and shouting at each other, just like you see on the films or on the news or whatever else, on their phones all day. Nobody had an email, nobody had a personal computer. It was literally just a screen in the middle of the room showing the price of US dollar against Deutschmark, and we had direct lines and about 10 speaker boxes on each desk, direct lines to the different banks in the world who were trading that one currency pair. And I did this for 18 years. I moved to something called currency options instead of spot, which is a little bit more derivatives and things like that, more involved. And I spent 15 years in Singapore doing this. So I moved out to Singapore, running 1,000 miles an hour on the corporate ladder, trying to just keep a roof over our heads and earning a good wage. But then come the end of the month, still thinking, how are we none of this makes sense. And I didn't question for 1 second the monetary unit that we were all using. I grew up using pounds, then I was living in Singapore using Singapore dollars. Then you would go to Bali in Indonesia and you would get a bunch of Indonesian rupees. Go to the restaurant, they didn't want that shit. They wanted US dollars. I'm like, huh? But your country's money is here. I exchanged it at the airport. Why don't you want it for the food and the goods and services that I've just bought from you? And I'd get you thinking a little bit, but still nothing would push me down the rabbit hole. I was too tied up in the hubris of expat lifestyle, the hubris of being in finance, the hubris of being around, all of the other little sociopaths that get drawn into that world, especially on the trading side of things. On the broking side of things, where I sat, there was a lot more kind of blue-collar working class people that made it into that side of the business. On the other side of the business, you had the mega brains, the quants, the mathematicians, and whatever else. And it wasn't until 2013 I read a book called The 4-Hour Work Week, which changed my life and my wife's life, because I realized I was living a deferred lifestyle. I was just sitting at my desk praying for the time to go by so I could get to 60, and then maybe I could go and start playing golf all day instead of sitting at a freaking desk, and that didn't sit well. So we quit. We left.
That was before Bitcoin.
Before Bitcoin.
Before Bitcoin.
But if it wasn't for me taking those steps and Claire taking those steps together, we wouldn't have found time. I was now the owner of my time, and that was something that we had never had before. And I could spend my energy in a way that I wanted to, and I needed to find a store of value because I didn't have any wages coming in. and I wanted to figure out a way to work nomadically, and that's how I found Bitcoin in 2015, and started really studying it, and started the podcast in 2020, and lucky enough, as you were pointing out in your talk, if you just put yourself out there, you will attract people to come to you. And my goal with the podcast was just to have the most interesting conversations I could possibly have. And I couldn't believe that I was reaching out to people such as Dean, who was just answering me direct in the DMs. He's like, yeah, let's set up a date. What? So fast forward, I now get paid in Bitcoin. The supporters of the podcast that I align with their values, and I've represented Coin Corner in the UK. Not allowed to do that anymore because the FSA say you're not allowed to promote crypto, and such other firms as Zapright at the moment, Swan Bitcoin, Orange Pill app, and Wasabi Wallet, although they've just had to close down because of the arrests over there. So yeah, it's changed my life, in our lives, in many different ways, and I'm lucky enough that I get to bring my family along to these events, and they get to enjoy them as much as I do. So thank you for. As a moderator, I forget. I just ask you the questions. So thanks.
And if anybody is ever thinking about homeschooling their children and they're not sure whether it's a good idea or not, meet the Quincy children, and then you'll do it. Because I mean, it's a bit of a mixture. I love them because they're all their own little individuals and they follow their own path in life. But if you ever want to your model family of what does homeschooling produce, then well done. You're doing a good job there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Thank you. All right, I've got to ask a question of, or if anybody else, like I said, we can throw this out as a therapy session if anybody else wants to join in. If there's any questions, feel free just to put your hand up, and all right, a willing customer.
Thank you. My name is Alexander, and I would like to ask about your opinion on what would you advise on how we can educate our closest people and spread the knowledge of Bitcoin to the closest people to us, because more or less everyone of us is obsessed and dive deep into the topic. But for me, personally, I really struggle to, for example, explain this to my girlfriend who is not aware on the topic, and because basically for me, understanding Bitcoin is understanding money, which is not a very simple topic to understand. So how we can approach in order to, in easy way, explain what Bitcoin is without being seen as crazy people.
I can go first. I think we'll always be crazy people. But I think what matters, especially for people close to you, is about talking about Bitcoin from the angle that could be more interesting to them. So my entire family owns Bitcoin, and I'm the first one to admit it. And so, there's each person had their own angle, kind of. When I talked with my older brother, he has a kid, so I was telling him about more the long-term perspective of that, and from the perspective of his kid. With my younger brother, it was more about his own personal life and his objectives, being able to buy an apartment. That's one of his ambitions. And so I said, well, look, maybe you can save in this. It might help you down the road. So he started buying Bitcoin. My dad used to work in energy, so I just started telling him a lot about energy and Bitcoin and the impact, and this is what kind of got him thinking. And my mom used to always play solitaire, so I got her to download the Thunder solitaire version. And not that she keeps this Bitcoin. Once a month she says, "Hey Pierre, look, I got €1 worth. Maybe I send it to you." I'm like, okay, thank you. So I think it's about meeting people where they are.
So I think it's also identifying the problem they've got and come up with why Bitcoin is a solution. But what I have learned is back off. So the best way to teach anyone about anything is show and don't tell. And you need them to be coming to you and going, they notice that things have changed in your life, and they notice the life that you're living, and then they come and ask you questions about what it is, and that is far more effective. And it might take a lot of time, but it's very interesting because with TerraHash, we're getting very involved with regenerative farming. I'd never heard of what regenerative farming was, and these guys came visiting our lab. We've got an energy lab where we do research into into renewable energy, and basically 30 years ago, regenerative farming started, and everybody laughed at them because they don't plow. So they say that the soil it's just Bitcoin. Soil is the basis of society, and you have to have a healthy soil. And if you have a healthy soil, you get healthy food. Same with Bitcoin. If you've got healthy money, you get healthy society. But everybody laughs at them. But they just did it. And they just ignore everyone laughing. And then time will tell. Over time, you do years and years, and then you notice who's living the better life and who's got the bigger problems. So my experience, if I could do my time again, I would have backed off. And I definitely went over the top and definitely put people off and definitely did some harm to some relationships, which I shouldn't have done. If I had my time again, don't do that. You can say what you will do and you live your life and lead by example, and then they will see. And something that we were discussing at breakfast this morning, opt out, don't fight it. You'll waste such a lot of energy fighting the system that we've got at the moment, and it's just exhausting. But what you can say is, I don't want to live that life anymore. I'm not going to get upset about it, but I am just going to go this route, and I'm going to live that life. And it's just so much more relaxing and peaceful than trying to fight something that you're not going to change anyway.
First of all, just to Rachel didn't mention it, but send your girlfriend to Le Femmes Orange.
I get every woman into Bitcoin.
And yes, I completely agree. I actually believe orange pilling doesn't work. So if we all talk about orange pilling people and who orange pilled us and whatever, none of us is motivated to study anything unless we have a problem that we are motivated to solve. So we are all Bitcoiners, we have been motivated to study Bitcoin, but there are tons of areas that we know nothing about that maybe people keep telling us, study this, look into this. Maybe you drink Coca-Cola and eat McDonald's every day and your girlfriend says, you should eat healthy, and you're like, oh, I like my junk food every day. And one day maybe you feel a bit sick and you're like, maybe I should look into healthy eating, whatever. It's exactly the same, just a different area. So let's all back off. Let's just let our friends know that we are there, we have knowledge, and when they're ready, they can come and ask us.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, because you mentioned your girlfriend. So I have a girlfriend too, and she.
It's quite unusual. 2 Bitcoiners.
That's great.
Very lucky.
What are you talking about, Ray? You should see our DMs. We've got lots and lots. Lots.
That's true.
And our tradings are going very well.
Very well, thank you.
But essentially, I think, because I mean, of course, we share similar values, right? I think that's why we're together in the first place. Even when I transitioned from being a fiat guy to being into Bitcoin, and my values changed then, to be honest. I changed a lot through this adventure, and so did she. But what really got her interested into this space, and I mean, she's very involved. She's helping with the Bitcoin Film Fest that I organized. She's helping me with my current company. She wants to help, and part of the reason is because events are fun. And Bitcoiners are cool. Like, we share similar values, and we'll directly get into some conversations that. So that's why she got into it, because I started. I told her, come with me, it's going to be fun, you're going to meet people. And every single person she met, she loved them. And she always wants to come back to meet these people again and just continue these relationships that are very true and based on core values that we share.
Are you going to shill the next Bitcoin Film Fest for him to bring a German discount code or anything like that?
Not yet, but do follow Bitcoin Film Fest on Twitter.
Do you ever think about the old sayings that your mum and dad used to say to you, they would just throw it out there, I keep thinking about how they keep coming back and they're very relevant. And in each case here, actions speak louder than words. It's a classic meme, but it's so true. And if you just let your actions speak louder than your words and just carry on doing what you're doing, before you know it, people are going to start asking you, huh? You wrote a book? Yeah. What? You wrote an article? Yeah. You started a payments firm? What are you talking about? Yeah. You started a Bitcoin vocation? Yeah. You work for a Bitcoin money? Yeah. And all of a sudden, and it's so quick, because that's just 9 months that it could take after taking that first initial step. And the other person that's looking at you is like, whoa, like, wow. You haven't said a word in the interim. So I would say, yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway. Yeah, actions speak louder than words. Are there any other different questions? 2, man. All right, I'm getting.
I wanted to come back to what Alexander said a little bit.
Okay, hang on. You need the mic.
Thank you. So coming back to helping your friends and family get off zero and get into Bitcoin. I think we're generally pre-programmed to be careful, and you hear a lot about scams. The mainstream media will be telling you about oh, this guy lost so much money in crypto, this guy got scammed. Then you're gonna get DMs from social media saying, hey, buy my token. So there's a lot of noise coming from the screens generally. So my recommendation is also just to go for a walk and talk about things with other people in real life.
The solution to everything is just walk.
Okay, here we go.
I wanted to ask for each of you at what point, because yes, the initial steps, let's learn about Bitcoin, but why did you say I'm going to dive deep? This is something that has the potential maybe to change my life. I don't know, but why are you so deep in it? And I have a follow-up because I'm guessing what would be the answers.
For me, it was taking stock of my finances and noticing, especially the pension issue, that I wasn't going to have a pension, and the responsible thing that I had done, like to set up a private pension plan for myself, wasn't going anywhere. And the whole fiat and inflation and this and that. So I want to feel free in my life until I'm old, and that means I need to be financially free in the fiat system is not possible, but I need to have enough money to just do whatever I want. And that motivated me to look into the best money that would help me grow my wealth with the years that I have left, basically. I needed the fastest vehicle to help me achieve a nice amount of money when I'm old.
What made me go deep was the pandemic, definitely. So when I was living in South Africa at the start of the pandemic, and we had to leave unexpectedly, and came back to Germany, and then things started happening that I couldn't explain. At the beginning you think, okay, there's this thing going on, and then things weren't making sense, and it started me just questioning stuff. And then when I read the Alex Gladstein book of Check Your Financial Privilege, because I've lived in China, and I've lived in Africa, and I've lived in the Middle East, and I've lived, when we were living in South Africa, we went over to Zimbabwe, and I mean, the money's lying on the floor in Zimbabwe, and there'd be guys walking along the street, and this is before I had studied economics. I haven't got a clue. I didn't know what money was, and they were trying to sell us $1 trillion bills and $1 billion bills, and I thought it was funny. Well, not funny for them, obviously, but it suddenly all made sense. And then you think, oh, well, if I've been completely wrong about that, what else have I been completely wrong about? And I think that's what it was. Just your whole worldview was just torn open, and everything that I thought until that point that was true wasn't. And then you think, well, if that area is not true, then what other areas are not true? And then you start going down here, and it's exhausting.
Yeah, so actually for me it's the exact same thing. that I always say it's we look at the world through different lenses, and I think these lenses, like it's just based on experience, what you're taught, and so on. And I think there's one lens for different elements of what life is or what life in society is. And for me, Bitcoin broke the first lens, like the very first one, that was around just money and inflation, and then it just kept on breaking one after the other, and it just got me down this thing where of course I started just like everyone, just talking about it nonstop, and that's something I stopped doing now. In this environment, yes, but outside of it, much more in the backing off of it, like you said. Yeah, and then I'm also a documentary filmmaker. That's not true. I'm a Bitcoin documentary filmmaker. I don't think I make a film about anything else, to be honest, because it's just this injustice and like learning these things where you realize, wait, actually, the moment you're born, you're screwed, just because. And it's not even because the people close to you decided that, or even people that aren't necessarily far away from you. It's even further because it comes from previous generations, right? And so everyone is just screwed and is stuck in this system, and so it makes me want to just explain it, expose it, and tell these stories. And I think that's just the addictive part of Bitcoin.
So in my case, it was I came for the money. Some people come for the tech and whatever else. I came for the money because I came from financial markets background, and as soon as I saw that number going up, I said, wow, this is amazing. What an investment. I'm going to be able to cash this out in the future, and we're going to be able to buy nice things, and it's going to be enabling for us and whatever else. But then what really made me go deeper, what really made me stick around, was the intellectual stimulation that I was getting from listening to other people's podcasts, from reading the articles, watching the YouTube channels and the books. That for the first time, I think, properly in my life, I was really learning, because I wasn't learning throughout the whole education system. You're being taught at. You're not learning. It's not learning as we are naturally built to learn. And you can't switch that off. You just can't. And then when that all started clicking, and Svetsky talked about this on one of our podcasts, I came for the money and stayed for the money, because click, the sat dropped. And you're like, oh shit, like this isn't coming for the money for more pounds, euros, or dollars. This is the money. This is it. We are like literally drawing a line in the sand of everything that's ever happened in humanity before us. And man, there's no coming back from that. I could not scrabble myself out of the rabbit hole at this stage, even if I tried. Like the scene in Batman where he keeps trying to get out and he finally gets out. I ain't getting out. You said you had a follow-up?
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. You kind of answered.
Thank you.
You kind of answered. The follow-up was, what would it take you out to go back? Or some people rephrase it, not going back, but what would it take for you to outgrow Bitcoin and go to other blockchains or whatever it is? Like to basically get out of this deep thing.
I think nothing. I mean, at this stage, right, you don't know what you don't know and what will come in the future. But it's just, definitely going on to other blockchains, I don't see this as a possibility, just like, unless Bitcoin disappears, right? But in what scenario would that happen? I don't know. So, no, I think, I don't see anything, to be honest.
But I think Ben Deval, he answered this brilliantly on his speech yesterday, that if you can show me a money that's better than Bitcoin, I will leave Bitcoin. So if you can show me, and I verify that it's better, we'll all go. We want the best money that humanity can provide, and at the moment it's Bitcoin. If something better comes up, but we all know network effect, all the rest of it is extremely unlikely. But
yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
Rado, yeah.
Yes.
And then I'll come to you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. So I've been in Bitcoin for a long time, but of course, the first aspect that we all like is the hard money, right? So that's natural. And I think a lot of what's happening in the space for so long now, more than 10 years, is around finances, money, and all of that. But I've been thinking about a lot of other things, and I wanted to get your perspective. And by the way, Pierre, I want to challenge you on the documentary, because there are a lot of other things that matter. For example, I'm thinking about governance, Bitcoin governance, and how to apply that to education or to community, and all of that. What is something else that you think it matters a lot around Bitcoin that is not related to the payment system or the applications or something else?
For me, it's freedom of speech mostly. So anything that, like, especially in social media, like Nostra or any other applications that will promote truth and freedom of speech, that is really important to me, besides the money aspect.
I think it's the culture side of Bitcoin, I think, is one of the elements that, so that's what we're doing with the Bitcoin Film Fest, essentially, is trying to bring people together, not from a business perspective, not from an investment perspective. It's really people that share certain values. And even at the last edition of the Film Fest, so this year's edition in April, we even had films that were not about Bitcoin, but they were about Bitcoin adjacent topics, topics that even the filmmakers that made these films, so the audience were pretty much all Bitcoiners, but the filmmakers were here that made the films, not about Bitcoin. They weren't Bitcoiners themselves, and they found the entire crowd, the event, just fascinating, because they realized that actually they're hanging out with people that have the same opinions as them, even if they don't care themselves about Bitcoin, and they approached their stories for their films from a completely different angle that was mostly freedom focused. I think that's a general aspect we all agree on, and I think that's one of the things that matters in Bitcoin, is being able to share that. And I was talking about it yesterday. I think we were talking about it yesterday. Where what's interesting with what we did with the Bitcoin Film Fest is the fact that there's different industries, of course, in the world, and what we're doing with the Film Fest is celebrating culture. You have stuff like film festivals, obviously. You have like Comic-Con that are about the culture from their industry, but that's the entertainment industry. I mean, what I'm not sure what industry Bitcoin is. I guess it's like finance, tech, like it depends. Like this is how it's seen, right? Yet there's like 400 people that gathered in Warsaw just to celebrate Bitcoin culture. There was no business involved. Like workshops were about filmmakers, artists, and I think that's the kind of thing that can just bring more people to the space without this, the scary factor of joining a new community. I mean, I know the first conference I went to, already as a Bitcoiner, I was like a stupid kind of anxiety feeling of what, like, I don't know how I'm gonna behave, what this is gonna be like. I'm like, and yeah, I think being able to have this much more casual approach and bring people around the core concepts of Bitcoin, and then explain how Bitcoin fits in their core values already. I think it's quite inspiring, at least to me.
For me, it's having a no bullshit life, because life is full of bullshit. And we spend so much time doing bullshit. And one thing I have to say, bringing up the children, it was really hard, but there's nothing bullshit about bringing up children. You know that what you're doing is a valuable contribution to society. And there's a lot of, I mean, anyone in this room, can you put your hand up and go, I don't have any bullshit in my job. I don't have to do any bullshit in my job. You don't have to do any bullshit in your job. Well, what do you do? I'm a tutor, English and math. Cool.
I work for Breeze.
Oh, you work for Breeze. You work for Breeze.
Bitcoin company.
Yeah. But you see, even Bitcoin companies, because this was the rant that I was having this morning, I came down in a foul mood today because I work for a Bitcoin company, but of course we have to follow the laws and regulations of Germany, and Germany is a pain in the arse. It used to be such a brilliant country, and we are so going down the socialist route. And I got into trouble because I haven't filled out a form to say why I'm coming to Budapest, that I am not working in, it's all rubbish. It's all rubbish. And then you have to have an HR department who's checking on me to say, you're creating jobs. They're not helping me in any shape or form. They're making my life more difficult. I have to stamp into work and stamp out of work. I will work if there's work to do, and if there's no work, I'm not bullshitting. I'm not bullshitting. I work really hard, but I'm not going to, just because I've got to stamp out at 5 o'clock. This is my weekend. Why do I have to fill out a form when I'm spending my weekend at a conference I don't want to do that. And I just want to opt out, and I just want to live a life in accordance to my values. And that's what, it's not, for me, it's not so much the money. It is the values, and it is, let's just cut through the crap and what is important to me in my life. What's important to you? I'm a very social person. I want my neighbours to be happy. I know that we need rules, but we need rules without rulers. We need the same, this is bringing up the children. I learned bringing up the children, don't have many rules. But whatever rules you do have, everybody has to stick to them, and that includes the adults. And this is the kind of society that I want to live in. I don't know how that's going to work. I like looking forward to the future, that you think, how is it going to be like on a Bitcoin standard? None of us have got any idea what it's going to be like, and how do we make... I was listening to Prince Philip, Don't talk about a flipping monarchy. We've had monarchies, and if monarchies were brilliant, we would still have monarchies. I don't want a monarchy. I think we can do much better than a monarchy. We need to have a rules without rulers. That just the same with our money, that if you want to live in that society, there's certain rules that the society has agreed upon, and I don't know how it's going to work. But it will, because humans are fab, and we'll get there.
I think you know my answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
but that's why I wanted to more about how do we disrupt it, because we all know Bitcoin standard will change things, but I'm kind of impatient. I want to disrupt now.
Exactly.
That's what I want to every Bitcoiner to ask them. How are we going to disrupt things, right? What are we doing to do that? Not just wait for things to happen on their own.
Exactly. Can we get the pump going? When's the pump coming? When are we going to get to 100 grand, 150,000? Because that will truly release more people. That's what happens in these cycles. And the next one is going to release another, who knows? It might be 1,000 Bitcoiners, it might be 10,000 Bitcoiners, that all of a sudden they're in a place where they can opt out. Because all of a sudden they're going to look at their hopefully cold storage set up, and they're going to think, I don't need to get up Monday morning anymore. And then they're in control of their own time. And then they can spend their time and their energy creating value for this space in some way, shape, or form. And they will find it, because that's what human beings do. Jeff Booth talks about this all the time. We're problem-solving machines. No one's just going to go and sit on the beach for the next 50 years. You get bored after a week. In fact, you have 1,000 ideas running through your mind, and you'll have to just right, I've done enough of this now. I've got to go and put something into action here. But yeah, my answer would be, as Rado would know, and anybody that's spoken to me or read my book, is about releasing our children from the education system, or even better, never putting them in there, because that is a system that is designed to keep us away from that entrepreneurial spirit. I think it's truly my belief that we are born entrepreneurs, but we think through mass media and the education system at large and society, the construct around us, that entrepreneurs are these 1 in a million people. Richard Branson, Elon Musk. No, they're just fucking dudes. They're just dudes like everybody else. And we get the love of learning, and this is what I was talking about earlier, the intellectual stimulation that I was feeling going down that rabbit hole. Never felt that in my life before. Never. And you cannot turn learning off. So if we free people from the education system, we don't put our young, tiny minds in there. I don't know who to attribute the quote to, but it goes along the lines of, give me a boy to the age of 7 and I will show you the man.
Celtic nations.
Thank you. Could you say it though?
Your Celtic nations.
Perfect. So that's what we're doing, and that's what we need to stop. And that's what we can do as Bitcoiners when we are in control of our own time, and we have the best money that we've ever discovered as a species. And that will change society. And it's only going to take a generation. And I'm here for it. You had a question, sir.
Yeah. It's more like a question dash asking for advice on the topic of Bitcoin standard, which I wish to adopt and to make this transition. But I think it's not as simple. So I would like to ask you, what do you suggest? Because I'm a true Bitcoiner deep inside, like pretty much everyone else in the room. But moving on to Bitcoin standard, scraping off all the fiat, but eventually payments like electricity bills and so on, you will need fiat. So my question is, how do you digest the volatility being on the Bitcoin standard, and what would you advise for us to do the transition, like small tips, because I would imagine if we are in a bear market and I have all my fiat into Bitcoin, and bear markets are bad, they're long, they're tiring and so on, but that volatility going down, how did you go through this period if you had all your fiat gone into Bitcoin?
So first the transition for me at least, and that's not really an advice, that's just gonna be how it went for me. It kind of happened naturally because I was just, buying, like selling my fiat to buy Bitcoin, and the value of Bitcoin was increasing. I ended up having much more Bitcoin than I had fiat, and I ended up spending all of my fiat because I didn't want to sell my Bitcoin, and I ended up with like everything in Bitcoin. And so that was kind of the natural way of going about it. And then in terms of how I live my life with it, well, I try to spend as much Bitcoin as I can, and otherwise I sell Bitcoin through peer-to-peer exchanges like Peach and stuff like that, which are pretty nice. And then I just sell like literally minimum amount.
And as much fiat as you need.
Yeah, exactly. And that just works somehow. And then you had another point. I forgot.
But I think it really is this process, because when I started off, you think, oh, well, I want to have 5% of my portfolio, make sure I get 5 million, and then let's make it 10%, and then you come to a point where you think it's too risky to hold fiat. It's too risky, but it is a process. You don't do that from today to tomorrow.
Oh, exactly.
You start off, and then the more you understand about how it's working, the more you see that that's the risk to have too much of your money exposed into. I think you just also need to look at the societies who really do live off the Bitcoin standard. I mean, they've got nothing to lose anyway, and it works for them. And we speak from a bit of a privileged position that we're having this discussion at all, because the ones who really need it, there's no discussion that they're using it because they have to use it. But just start slowly. Go step by step, and when you're ready for the next step, you move into the next step. And if you're not ready for the next step, don't do it.
Just like Larry Fink.
Yeah.
Anya?
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember how early we are, how new this all is. Things are chaotic in the beginning and volatile. We all believe the more Bitcoin gets adopted, the less volatile it will be. All fiat currencies are volatile, but it's so little that we don't notice. Well, some more than others. So I have one foot in each. I save the good money, I spend the bad money. When I earn in Bitcoin, I take out just as much as I need in fiat for my monthly costs, and I save as much as possible. When I earn in fiat, I will actually do the same and calculate my monthly costs and put as much as possible in Bitcoin. So, and I have a little Lightning wallet for daily spendings if I want. I don't really spend. I'm a hodler. Maybe that's also something we should discuss. We have two schools of thoughts. Should you hodl or should you spend and bring it into circulation? I have a little Lightning wallet where I can just tip people or buy small ebooks or buy a conference ticket or something. So I do that, or buy a coffee at a conference. But so far, for the last 8 years, I've been mostly a hodler, and I try to have every day more sats than I had yesterday.
Okay, so yeah, I know your pain because I've gone through it. Like Rachel and Pierre, all of a sudden it's like, I better switch off that dollar cost average because there's nothing left in the bank account. Okay, so now that's a weird scenario. So yeah, all of a sudden you find your balls deep in Bitcoin, and you've now got to, so I don't say sell, trade or cycle out. And the way I do that is, first of all, I went to trusted friends that I've met in the space who I trust inherently, who I know are buying Bitcoin and they're stacking their little socks off. So when I come to them at the end of the month and say, hey, listen, I need some fiat to pay for the rent and electricity bills, the day-to-day, whatever. I've got 6 or 7 of them. I can just split that between each of them, and I can get the fiat, but that's a pain in the ass. So now I've found Bitrefill because they've now launched a Visa card. So it's a virtual Visa card that I just keep on my Google Wallet here, and I can top that up with Bitcoin. You're paying a bit of an exchange rate there, but you're also cutting out the middleman of trying to get to your friends, making sure that they want to stack some sats, and then they've got to drop it in your bank account. So there's a lot of KYC stuff going along the way. You do have the KYC for the credit card, like every credit card company, but I just send the money, some Bitcoin, whatever I need, a couple of thousand at the end of the month, whatever, to be used for the next month. And I can use that anywhere I go. And it just click, thank you very much, groceries, petrol, whatever we need. So that's one tool. There's another tool out there called Zappo Bank, which was started by Wences Cesares, who's an OG Bitcoiner. And they have also a virtual card, and they should be announcing, I think, in Prague that they're going to be going Europe-wide. And what you can do with that service is, you can send Bitcoin across there as well, and then that's another bank account. But you have more functionality there. If you want to switch that into dollars, you can just switch that into dollars. So if you're feeling the pinch and you're like, I don't like the way that the price action is going here, and you're worried about the volatility, you can just switch that into dollars, and you can just hold it in dollars. And they're also going to be launching Zappo, Z-A-P-O. X-A-P-O, yes.
Okay, I was about to ask you.
X-A-P-O, that's correct. So look out for them on Twitter. You use it already?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And they're the two that I found at the moment that are most interesting to me. And here's the mind melter, which Knut and I have talked about at length at very late nights over very strong poncha in Madeira. It's like, how do you get used to the fact that your stack is forever going to go down, but your purchasing power is forever going to go up? Huh? It's so difficult. It's so difficult to grasp.
Takes time to digest it.
Yes, but when you do, man, you sleep well.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember to live. You might be dead tomorrow, so don't be stacking and forgetting to live. Live your life. It's more important than having an enormous stack at the end of it. You don't need much Bitcoin in the end to make a difference. So live your life and stack it on the side.
And also from the dealing with volatility side. I mean, of course, when the price goes up, that's easy to deal with. Right?
Yeah.
But although, I mean, yes and no, because you do enter a phase of euphoria and I know it's something interesting to deal with, especially that then comes the bear market, and that's the volatility to the downside. And this, so I went through 2 bear markets. The first one, I was working my corporate job, and so I kind of didn't care. I mean, I lost money. I was like, okay, I'll just wait my next paycheck, and it's okay. The second one, though, I was already like full-time Bitcoiner, like working in the space, and that was much harder because it was a new way of dealing with this downside, and like it's a lot of emotions, it's a lot of but in the end I mean, you take responsibility and you work as much as you can to like make sure you change that, and you get ready for the next bull run where there's more opportunity that's going to come. So if anything, it should work as a motivator. At least that's what it did for me.
And I think by the time you're on your third cycle, you don't care anymore.
We'll see.
There are other tools too, like what I want to build.
There are other tools as well to okay.
To go through the volatility.
Which you're going to launch for us, yeah?
Yes.
Perfect. You heard it here first. Take a picture of this dude. He's going to build. Are you from Bulgaria?
Yep.
Yeah. Where do you live? Anywhere near that dude?
I live in the middle of the country, Veliko Tърново.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I'm in Varna.
Okay. You need to collaborate, and you'll be able to free Bulgaria from the worries of the volatility. Are there any other questions? I'm not sure when to wrap this up. I have no idea what. Yes, Alex. Alex, you're at the back there. 1 second. I'll meet you halfway.
Thank you. I want to complete our conversation about the privacy. The story is we are public faces to Bitcoin. I include myself as my company accepts payments. But over time I was starting to think about my privacy and to do we put a target on our backs in case of things go wrong. Either other people get jealous of us, envious, or if the state for some reason decides to go tracking us. So what is your take on this point, which is inspired by Anya's point, put your Bitcoin targets on your LinkedIn so you're publicly available?
Yeah, very good question. It all depends on what your goal is, what your values are. If you really want to work in Bitcoin, you want to be found on certain, like on LinkedIn, for example, well, it's a trade-off. If you want to be found, you need to make sure you're recognizable as a Bitcoiner. But yes, you give up your privacy. If you are already a rockstar developer or someone who can remain private, he will be found anywhere without giving up his identity. Yeah, honestly, for me, in my case, I have found my purpose. This is what I want to do. I want to help this thing grow, and I will die on this hill.
Yeah, she said it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, at least we're lucky that we do work in an industry where it's accepted and respected that some people want to keep their privacy and they can have a full professional life keeping their privacy. But yeah, I think there's limits to where privacy can take you, to be honest. And also there's limit to privacy itself. I mean, I don't want to scare everyone, but I've had conversations with people that deal with cybersecurity where the fact that the app store on your phone knows who you are and they know all of the apps that you're downloading means that they don't need to go very far to find out that you're a Bitcoiner and you own Bitcoin. And using this information plus like an email address that they like triangulate with different exchanges that were hacked, information is available on the dark web. I mean, they can know your public address if they want to. So it's, also the privacy question is a big question mark, and whether or not we have it, that's, I think we should focus on making the technological changes as quickly as possible and as robust as possible in order to make sure that we can transition to that space. While, our past privacy might not be protected, but at least the future privacy will be.
Yeah, it's we started with this conversation earlier. It's really interesting to kind of carry on with what you were saying there. I don't think there's any anon on Twitter that's anonymous. Like, there's nowhere in the world. Yeah, you can put up a fake profile picture and say something different about your true life, but your phone knows who you are, and it's not going to be very difficult to find out. I mean, look what's happened in the last 2 days with Fiat Jeff, with Nosta. some journalist, 25-year-old journalist, went out and found out everything about him and dropped the whole story in Business Insider magazine. Like, this is, I mean, outrageous that anybody should feel the need to do that just to further her own career and prove a point that she's good at her job. But then on the other side of that, is she going to, I mean, it's free advertising for Nostr, I suppose. Like, now a lot more people know who, what Nostr is and who's behind it.
Why we need it.
And why we need it, exactly. She was, inadvertently proving the point of why we do need Nostr. And then we'll look at the, would Apple have been as successful if Steve Jobs was a faceless person coming out with masks and dark glasses and a baseball cap? I don't know, maybe. It's great to have these conversations. But to your point, it's personal. It's completely personal, and it is your right to stay completely private if you want, or give out a little bit. For me, I started the podcast, so I'm very much doxed, if to say the very least. But when I started the podcast, I didn't give privacy a thought. I was still kind of, half fiat-brained monkey that had given up all of my personal data throughout my whole life, ever since the internet basically started. We've all grown up doing that, right? So I don't know. There's no surefire answer. Think about it deeply, and but I would say, if you want to add value into the space in some way and really make a difference, I think there is a lot to be said for actually putting your personality and your true identity behind that. I think you reach a lot more people doing it that way.
Yeah, and I think also when it comes to business, I mean, it's people that do business with other people, and bigger deals, investments, and so on. People want to know who they're dealing with, and they want to build a relationship. And it's oftentimes more than just about the business that you have. It's also about who you are, the values that you have, and how you're gonna, just by being yourself, you can prove that you're gonna take it the right direction. So I think it all just depends on what you're doing, essentially.
That's the end of therapy. No, we are going to wrap it up. So thank you, everybody, for being part of this.